Spotlight on Service is sponsored by Otco Home Appliances. Luxury lives here.
We're celebrating our nation's 250th birthday by honoring everyday Americans. We call it Red, White, and You, and it's the perfect way to honor veterans in the St. Louis area who've served their country. Steve Savar joins us now with tonight's Spotlight on Service.
Mike, it was an elementary school assembly that started tonight's veteran onto the road to mental health recovery here tonight. Afton native John Froidl filled a much-needed role in Vietnam. He was recommended for non-commissioned officer school based on leadership potential and landed in Vietnam as a sergeant in the fall of 1969. He led 17 to 25 men daily. His duties included coordinating 81mm mortar fire. But the skill that made him so valuable on the battlefield was his ability to read maps and compasses. But John wasn't able to talk about his service until he finally received the long overdue welcome home from his granddaughter and her elementary school classmates and teachers.
You're either a leader or you're not. Growing up, I'm the guy they followed. And then you got to have some leadership. Then you got to make good decisions. You have to make fast decisions.
You know, your real skill here was be able to read a map and a compass.
Yes.
Do you think that saved lives?
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. I would fire one round, and then if it needed adjustment, they'd give me that adjustment. Usually by the second round, I was on target, and then we would fire for effect. Fire for effect might be 1 round, might be 10 rounds. This is a 81mm mortar round that we fired in Vietnam.
John's time in combat ended 10.5 months into his tour in July 1970 when a mortar exploded nearby. Shrapnel ripped into various parts of John's body.
They had to cut me open in order to repair my artery.
His left arm was severely damaged.
A friend of mine told me years ago, he says, "You were covered with blood." Well, then I passed out.
John spent 10 weeks in a hospital. Multiple surgeries and dozens of wire stitches pieced his arm back together.
I was glad to make it back after 2.5 months in the hospital, hearing guys cry, guys that wanted to give up. I mean, you're 19, you lost a leg and an arm. For them, they didn't know what their future was. I really thought I was going to lose my arm. In Vietnam, you didn't wear your rank. Your patch was black. You wanted to stand out.
John returned home without fanfare or thanks or any help for PTSD. He went decades without speaking about Vietnam.
I didn't want people to think something was wrong with me, so I wouldn't talk about it.
Is that how you felt?
Yeah, but worried somebody think it was, hey, there's something wrong with that guy.
It was an emotional day at his second-grade granddaughter's elementary school that started John down a healthier path, more than 35 years after his combat tour ended.
Of course, they said, would people in the Army stand up? Would the people in the Marines stand up? And then that was over. And then all of a sudden the guy says, "I saw a guy with a Purple Heart. Would you please stand up?" All those years didn't mean nothing. So I stood up. I looked over at my granddaughter. She's pointing at me. That's my grandpa. The first time it felt something to me. And I don't know. I sat down, and even today, I cried through that whole ceremony. I couldn't stop.
Since that day, John has found the strength to speak often about his time in combat.
This for my grandchildren.
And has even compiled a book about his service. My Army Story isn't for publication, it's for family.
When somebody says, "Hey, your great-grandpa was in Vietnam, what did he do?" Well, now they'll know. John has actually compiled several detailed books about his tour in Vietnam. He and his wife Betty have been married 34 years, and what a pleasure it was to meet them. And Mike, to illustrate how far John has come in his healing process, Betty tells me that he talks so much, his nickname is "Shut Up, John." And John laughs the loudest when he hears the nickname, says it's all very true. And I want to thank Tom Stasiak and Eric Voss for helping me tell John's story.
What a great story about his granddaughter and then all those kids and how much it meant to him. You could just see him breaking on camera because of what it meant to him.
He said it felt like he was being really thanked, honestly, for the first time.
Yeah. Steve, thanks so much for that great story.